No,
Hello, how is everyone?
hey Amber.
Hi. Ali, can I ask, is there a lot of background noise where I am, or can you hear me okay?
I can hear you okay.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. Great.
It's Leon here.
Good afternoon,
Good afternoon.
Dr. Ngassam. Am I
Yeah,
pronouncing it right? How are you doing?
I'm good, Leon. How are you?
I'm doing great. This is Alioune Sen
Yeah.
from WARC, the West African Research Center, and I also work as the program assistant of the Fulbright program in Sub-Saharan Africa. Thank you for being with us today. Hi, Amber. How you doing?
Hi, Ali, and I'm fine, thank you. It's nice to hear your voice.
Yes, I don't know why my camera is not working. Um, Hang on a sec. I'll try to.
Mm.
Good afternoon,
Hello.
Rodian. Hello?
Hello, madam.
Yeah, I don't know if you can hear us.
We can hear you fine.
Okay.
Hello, Nana. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Hi, Amber.
Hello.
I'm trying to turn on my video, but it seems like I'm having some issues.
Yeah, I have the same problem. I don't know what's going.
Yeah, maybe it's in the settings, maybe.
Hi, Brandon. How you doing? Okay, Dr. Bodian, shall we wait maybe for a couple more minutes?
Yeah,
Or
we can wait maybe
for
maybe
Dr.
4 to 5 minutes.
Yeah, for Dr.
Is
Zale
Ale
to
here?
come. No, no, I don't think he's here.
Okay. Yeah, let's take 5 minutes maybe, and I'll try to maybe reaching around.
Okay.
Ali, maybe we should start and hoping that Zale will join us.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Let's see. Ah, there he is.
Yeah. Okay.
Dr.
There we go.
Zale, can you hear us? Okay, anyway, I think we'll catch up. So, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Series 10 of the Fulbright Virtual Enrichment Seminar. This is Alioune Sen, Assistant Coordinator of the Fulbright Program. So, today's topic will be on politics of knowledge and the role of social scientists. And our Fulbright presenter for today will be Dr. Amber Murray. We'll have Dr. Zale and Dr. Gassam as our guest speakers, and Dr. Mamadou Bodian, the main coordinator of the Fulbright program in the Sub-Saharan Africa, will be our moderator. So Amber, actually Dr. Bodian, I think I'll give you the floor for the introduction of today's speakers. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alioune. It's a privilege to moderate this conversation that touches on a very, very important and pressing issue, the politics of knowledge production and the role of social scientists in West Africa. And I'm really delighted because the idea here is to engage in a sort of critical thinking or reflection on issues that are of interest today for social scientists in a continent that is undergoing deep transformation, where issues sometimes can challenge the way we traditionally think about them, political issues, but also social issues and cultural issues. And knowledge production is very important. And I think one of my take on the challenges that the country is facing is, for me, at the core, it's an epistemological problem, because we don't know exactly where we come from or how we think about issues the continent is facing. So today we have the opportunity to have guest speakers. Dr. Zale, who is a colleague of mine, but also a good friend, and I'm very delighted that he accepted to join us. He's an adjunct faculty at Cheikh Anta Diop University, serving in the Department of Anglophone Studies at the Department of Islamic Studies. He also teaches comparative political system and international relations at the ESM Madiba Leadership Institute in Dakar. And the second speaker is Valerie Nana Ngassam, who is a professor of astronomy and physics at Sacramento City College in California, with a strong commitment to decolonizing science curricula and promoting African-centered education. As a key member of the Pathway to Africa-Centered Education initiative, he works to challenge Eurocentric framework on STEMs and advocate pedagogies rooted in African epistemologies and lived experiences. And these are the two guest speakers. And then we have Fulbright speakers, or at least one Fulbright speaker. It's Dr. Amber Murray, who is an associate professor of human geography at the University of Oxford, a 24-25 Fulbright scholar at the University of Yaoundé 1 in Cameroon. Her award-winning scholarship on political ecology in Cameroon focuses on forms of what she called slow descent, community struggle, and resistance amid intergenerational and extractive violence. So without further ado, we're gonna start with Aline. I think, are we gonna follow the order? Maybe Zale first, or the Fulbright speaker?
I think we can start with Dr. Murray if she's ready, and then we'll open the floor to the guest speakers if that's okay with you.
Okay, sounds good. So Dr. Murray, so the floor is yours.
Sorry, sometimes I do the share and then it won't let me unmute. So get myself sorted here.
That's okay.
Good.
Technology can be tricky.
Continue to share. Okay, great. Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me. I have come to a public place today as I'm between residences, so I'm really sorry if there's distracting background noise, but I'm going to do my best to speak loudly and clearly. First, I'd like to thank Alioune Sen for the flexibility. This was a session that we had to reschedule multiple times And I'm really grateful to him for his insistence that we have this discussion, and also for recruiting such an impressive and powerful lineup of guest speakers to comment on this topic, which is the politics of knowledge and the roles of social scientists in Sub-Saharan Africa. So for my part, I believe I have about 15 minutes to speak with you today, and I would like to offer some reflections and thoughts on the roles of social scientists within extractive projects in particular. So this is part of the research that I was doing as part of the Fulbright in Yaoundé and outside of Yaoundé in Cameroon. But really, this is a global project. And so I've been having interviews on Zoom and Teams with scholars, scholar activists, consultants, external monitors. I want to mute.
Just a second. Zale, can you mute?
No. Okay, bro, thanks.
I think you can mute Zale if you were the host. You can actually mute him.
Alioune, can you just mute Zale?
I'm sorry. Oh, sorry about that.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Sorry, when I share my screen, I can't see the Zoom interface anymore, so I can't try to mute anyone. So thank you about that. So as I was saying, while this is a project that I was undertaking during my time in Yaoundé, this is really a global project that is zooming in specifically on the roles of social scientists within extractive projects and extractive geographies. So I've had approximately 50 conversations now with social scientists and scholars who have devoted their careers to working kind of across the plethora of forms of work and labor that social scientists can do within extractive geographies, and that includes working for extractive corporations. And so kind of the thrust of the project is that social scientists are more than observers and researchers of extractive industries, but rather they're active people with the capacity to shape, reinforce, or challenge extractive practices and logics. So in this project, I am examining the roles of social scientists as consultants, as corporate mediators, as external monitors, as well as scholar activists. We unpack the ethical dilemmas, the power entanglements, and shifting justifications that shape social science involvements in extraction. And in doing so, we're kind of teasing out this question of how social science can move beyond its self-replicating forms of extraction and extractivism. So social science moving beyond extraction, not just as an object or a thing that we study, but as a praxis and a methodological orientation for ourselves. So in the project, there are multiple different theoretical strands and groundings that are informing my understanding of the labor of social scientists. The first is that researchers are structurally positioned within academies that are themselves shaped by imperial capitalist relations and histories of colonization. Universities and academics then can reproduce capitalist hierarchy and inequality rather than challenge them. This is drawing from the work of Samir Amin, Isa Shifji, and others that are showing that social scientists can in fact act as diverse bourgeoisie actors within global racial capitalism, right? So reproducing inequalities. And finally, that social scientists, by naming and categorizing the world, participate in the construction of reality, drawing from the important sociological insights of Pierre Bourdieu. And this includes political contestations. So an important caveat, I only have a couple of minutes with you today, so I'm really, I'm not going to be able to offer reflections on all of the diverse sets of ways in which social scientists have historically engaged with extraction, but of course, the members of this call, the participants on this call, will realize that social scientists also have a deep and dynamic and active history of contestation against projects of extractivism, and that is a focal point of this project, but it's not going to be the focal point of this discussion. So why am I interested in the roles of social science scientists in extractive projects? Well, my interest emerged early on in some research that I did along the Chad-Cameroon oil pipeline, which you can see on the map on your screen, and on the left-hand side here, this subterranean oil pipeline that begins in Chad's southern Doba Basin and runs kind of the length of the country of Cameroon to the Gulf of Guinea, to the town of Kribi, where the offloading shore vessel is located. So it's a massive infrastructural project in Chad and Cameroon. It was designed and engineered in the early 2000s, and construction was completed in 2003. And as I started work on the pipeline in 2007, one of the fascinating stories to me as a social scientist was the employment by Exxon and other members of the oil consortium of social scientists to do a variety of different tasks for the extractive consortium. So one of the tasks that social scientists were involved in conducting was to go village by village, particularly in the Doba region where the oil wells and all of the drilling occurs, and to identify sacred areas that were going to be destroyed during the construction phase of the pipeline. And those social scientists tasked with this work were most often anthropologists and political ecologists. They had deep ties to communities in the region. They spoke local languages, and they had intricate knowledge of indigenous practices. And so we can see on the screen in front of you, I have taken a screenshot actually of one of Exxon's project reports celebrating this activity by anthropologists and other social scientists to go out into the field and to identify sacred areas, not for their preservation, but rather for their destruction, right? So to identify sacred groves where different rites of passage might occur, or which have customary significance for different traditional and medicinal practices. And they would document these sites and then propose and work with local community members to ensure that their destruction was as non-violent as possible. And so one of the social scientists who was very prominently employed by Exxon is an anthropologist by the name of Dr. Ellen Brown, who she, went to local communities, identified these sites, and was able to work with marabouts and other traditional medicinal practitioners to purify and to sanctify the destruction of sacred groves and other sacred areas, and kind of displace the sacred nature of those areas to other locations that were not going to be destroyed in the construction of the Chad-Cameroon oil pipeline. And so Dr. Ellen Brown actually conducted so many of these purification rites in which a chicken sacrifice is required because the blood is spread around by a marabou to purify the site, that people in and around Doba began calling her Madame Sacrifice because she had overseen so many chicken sacrifice rites on behalf of Exxon. And these, what was also quite fascinating for me to learn as I began working on this particular oil pipeline from the perspective of communities in Cameroon, is that this work by social scientists was celebrated by extractive actors and kind of, even picked up in global media. So here we see CNN Money, for example, but the Washington Post and the New York Times also have articles, particularly kind of sketching and following Dr. Ellen Brown's work in this regard of, look at what Exxon is trying to do. This is a more locally friendly form of extractivism, and is something that Exxon is doing to be more accountable, to be more attentive to local needs and local politics. But we can see then, even the way that the media discourse and the kind of extractive discourse, right? ExxonMobil's own celebratory framing in all of their annual project reports of their work with social scientists is actually done also in a way that denigrates local people and local spaces. It presumes that these sacrifices are a legitimate token of to offset the place-based dispossessions that were happening as a consequence of the Chad-Cameroon oil pipeline. And also kind of perpetually are setting up a narrative for ever more forms of extractive intervention. So I started to wonder more about the roles of social scientists in extractive projects, and subsequently a couple of different kind of aspects of this dynamic were fascinating to me. So the first was that situated within the Northern Academy, there is a kind of shame, almost a kind of secretive nature to social science work with state and corporate extractive actors. And so there's really not much work openly excavating these relationships. And so as I started this project, one of the things that I noted, it was that in my kind of methodological approach was that I really needed to read the acknowledgement sections of different research reports and footnotes to try to understand, okay, when and why is a particular social scientist networking with or kind of indebted in certain ways to an extractive actor, because they are not centering those relationships openly in their work. So on this side here, then we see kind of some of the leading ways in which social scientists work on behalf of extractive actors. So one of the most prominent is that they conduct scoping and reviewing studies for extractive actors, right? So they go out into the field and they are producing data for baseline studies, for example, for environmental impact reports or social impact reports. Social scientists also work with community organizations and environmental NGOs, some of which, those who are working in this sector will know that some of those community organizations often also have ties to corporate and state actors. Social scientists can fill mediary roles. And so they act as bridges between corporations, governments, and local communities. This is particularly the case with compensation mechanisms, that social scientists are quite frequently the mediators. So they read the requirements from the corporate actors, understand the legal and financial jargon, and then go out to communities and assist community members in framing their claims in a certain language that will be legitimate to corporate actors. Laurie Leonard has done really important work on the framing of that language and also what is rendered impossible then. So if we think about the destruction of sacred sites, for example, there is no financial material compensation, and we can argue that the immaterial compensation, that is those performative rights, were insufficient as a form of reciprocity to communities. I have a couple of others on here that were just things that were quite interesting to me. So one of the geographers that I interviewed, mentioned that their geography department at Dar es Salaam had recently been commissioned to put together a decolonized ecology dictionary, which sounds brilliant. But then we understand that this was commissioned by Shell, and that while the language is about decolonizing and it's about extractive actors familiarizing themselves with Swahili and other local languages, that the ultimate goal or aspiration of that dictionary is not community empowerment. Here's a pretty standard photo from, this is from Esso Chad, which is Exxon's subsidiary in Chad, celebrating these community consultations, but we can see they're very unidirectional. And these are very often led by social scientists or extractive execs and middlemen who are trained in the social sciences, which is also an interesting component. If we look at the curriculum for example, petroleum engineering, and increasingly in the last decade or so, there's an acknowledgement that petroleum execs and engineers need to have some knowledge of the social sciences. Here is a juxtaposition of, on the left-hand side of your screen, you see more of those promotional materials produced by the oil consortium saying, look, here we are, we're in the community, we have these forms of community engagement, and yet how profound, how serious, and how authentic are they? And so this is juxtaposed with a kind of an eerily similar archival photographs of the colonial period in the region, where we see, again, a kind of documentation of local involvement in this way. So that the social scientists mediating between these different hegemonic and grassroots actors are kind of repeating earlier forms of colonial and imperial violence. I'm running out of time, but just the last point that I wanted to make was about the differential structural positioning of researchers and social scientists. And so one of the aspects of this project is to look then at the particular situatedness of social scientists within Cameroon, within Yaoundé, and more broadly. I've also spoke with researchers in Marawa and in Ngaoundéré, Chang, Douala, Boya, and Bamida, to understand academic imperialism and academic dependency, and how these the structural relations embedded within academic reproduction situate scholars in positions of precarity in which for researchers in Cameroon, they frequently describe that they have less agency to decline, for example, a corporate consulting position. And so in some of my conversations with researchers, then they have described, well, yes, we were commissioned to do a baseline scoping study for a mining firm, and that came from the ministry, that then went to the university rector, that then went to my head of department, which was then delegated to me. And so there's a hierarchy, and that hierarchy is followed as a matter of academic survival. And also, of course, that per diems and honorariums are important supplementary materials for social scientists working in Cameroon. So what to do then in this context? This is my last slide. This is, I think, one of the things that I'm thinking about in my own work is to think of social science as a set of relations and a kind of holistic lifelong practice, and that we have opportunities, and we absolutely do have capacity and agency to mobilize the resources and the networks that we have at our disposal in ways that can challenge the reproduction of hierarchies within global academic networks. And so on this screen, this is a workshop that colleagues and I had recently, which was looking at the possibilities for methodologies of humor and comedy to seek as a form of seeking redress to ecological and environmental harms in Cameroon. And so we had stand-up comedians and radio talk show hosts and political ecologists and botanists who came to this discussion, and it was lively and dynamic, and that those sorts of moments and those forms of relationship building, of course, are not going to, there's no one-off event that's going to challenge the system, but that can contribute in positive ways to a social science, to social sciences as more meaningful, engaging in forms of reciprocity and giving back. So thank you so much for your time today, and I look forward to the rest of the discussion.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mary. This is a powerful presentation. And what I took from it is this theory reminder that social scientists are never neutral. And I think you're right. We are implicated through the language we use or the categories we build, but also the kind of partnership we accept. And I think your example of ExxonMobil pipeline is But I like also this concept of a sanctification, it's like a sanctification of the destruction, right? Which also exposes an anthropologist to what I can kind of label as a process of what weaponizing them, and how cultural recognition become a tool to legitimize erosion. And so it's really a ritual of participation and but not protection. It seems to me, listening from your presentation. You also made clear that academics dependency, and I think I like this point, but also economic precarity are not just background condition. They are really structural forces shaping what gets researched, who speaks, but also who stays silent. And I think we all face sometimes these kind of challenges as consultants. And I think in this context, a refusal can become a political act. But how to negotiate between acceptance and refusal, and what to accept, and this is really a critical question. And I really enjoyed this presentation, which is not just critical; it is a call to reclaim social science from the grip of extraction, but also, to practice scholarship rooted in justice. And not necessarily justification. Thank you so much. I would just maybe give the floor to Dr. Nana. Maybe we can, I can hand it over to you.
Okay, thank you, Mamadou. Thank you, Amber, for a great talk. I happen to come from Cameroon, so some of the spaces that you were describing were very familiar to me. I was smiling when I saw the picture of one of the comedians of the picture, Piment Noir. It's one of my favorite comedians. Because he try as much as he can in his comedy to fight the incongruity of the system we live in. Thank you. So I'm can I share my screen?
Sure.
Okay, need to do this in two step. So I'll share my screen here. Okay, I'm having issue sharing screen. I'll do that in two steps. I'll go here, share screen two, and then okay. So do you have my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I think I'm gonna have a totally different approach, not as a scholar, but more as a practitioner, somebody who've navigated this type of environment. So to talk about it, I want to maybe first talk a little bit about myself in the sense that I've worked in different contexts. I was educated in Cameroon, mostly at the University of Yaoundé 1. Then finished. I had a PhD between a co-tutor between Cameroon and France, and then moved to the US to work first as a scientist, as a researcher, and then migrated progressively toward teaching. Right now, I teach mostly astronomy and physics at Sacramento City College. I want to say that a couple of years ago, I started committing more of my time into equity in STEM because I was like, I noticed that black and brown students were not, I didn't see a lot of these people in my class of black and brown students, so decided to kind of put some of my energy there. And also, toward the end, maybe I'll talk about two initiatives that I'm part of, the PACE at Sacramento City and the FACO Bilingual Academy, which is a school we are developing in Cameroon. So to kind of connect to what Amber was saying, the colonial legacy still shape education and research, curriculum production in general, in Africa. These kind of undermine our local and intellectual sovereignty. One of the examples is just the language we use, the languages we use, right? I'm from a group called Bamileke, and in that group, I'm from a subgroup called Bangante. So I speak Menzimba. And one of the big tenets of our culture is Ndap. Then that it's kind of a name that connects you to your siblings, to your genealogy, and to your ancestor. But saying that Ntap is a name, it's really very reductive. So it's very difficult for me to explain the Ntap to somebody in English or in French if I wanted to. So just studying with some using somebody else's language already disconnects you from your culture, right? So I think that is one of the most important influence that we have. And in some colony, to take the example of France, the French Development Agency still have a say in what textbook people are reading in school, what pedagogies use in their former colony. So you have from the get-go a disconnection between research and educational priority and the community needs. So I'm not going to talk about the role of social scientists in general, but I think they can help advance, you know, policy and influence by influencing the public discourse. But I think Amber was talking earlier about the academic dependence, the economic precarity, and I will add even, corruption, because the precarity is used to corrupt people. There's a lot of constraint as well, but I'm going to push this to STEM educator because I'm one. And I think we must also be part of this governance conversation, right? Because science, education impact public health, impact infrastructure, the climate, and national development, especially for countries that need to be developed. Right? This is often overlooked, not only by the institution, but by STEM scientists as well. Collaboration with the North, it's useful. It can bring valuable resources to African researchers. But, though that collaboration must be reciprocal. So African scientists should not be data collector, they should be thought leader. We need to find ways to build long-term partnership that will benefit the community we are doing research with and not on. To go back to what I've been working on recently, one of my goal is to help decolonize pedagogy. How do you center indigenous ways of knowing? How do you validate our local practices? One of these examples came to me in January. I was in Senegal as part of the overseas faculty development. And I was discussing with Dr. Nzali here, actually. We were on a boat with a fisherman, and we're talking about tide. And he was telling me, yeah, but you have high tide when the light is on. And I was like, no, complete, that is wrong. High tide is controlled by gravity. And then I stopped myself in the middle of that sentence. I think Camille will remember that conversation. I was like, yeah, but you're right. Because whenever the moon and the sun align, you will have light, so they see high tide connected. But my own training, have taken me away from this type of knowledge. And I was focused on, I understand gravity, I understand how it works, but I invalidated the knowledge which was very valid that fisherman was giving me at the time because of my training. So it's very important, even for us Africans, to think about our own bias and think about how we are sometimes part of the problem. I just wanted to mention here because you guys are located in Senegal, the example of Sheikh Anta Diop, was one of the greatest scientists, African scientists, in my opinion, but who was marginalized for. It was dismissed for challenging Euroscientific history yet his work still resonates today. So in my astronomy classes, I try to draw connection between this traditional African cosmology and modern astrophysics, helping students understand that our uh, knowledge system in Africa are rigorous and meaningful. Not all of them, but you can find with proper research, you can find very meaningful way of knowing Africa. I want to talk here about digitalization, which can democratize the knowledge, but again, it depends how it's going to be used. I think the main threat behind all these are we work mostly for the interest of this big corporation, and sometimes we're not even aware of how our work is connected to their interest. To extend what we do, there's two things we're doing. My slide are kind of, but I'll talk about the FACO bilingual school. I want to first talk about. Let me go to the PACE. The PACE program is Pathway to African Standard Education. It's a program that we've developed here at Sacramento City College, where we select 20 to 30 students every year, and we work with them for a semester. And then we take them for 3 weeks in Africa. The last 2 years, we've taken 45 students to Ghana. The goal there is to explore the African root, yes, but it's also to explore African culture and sciences. It, helps see themselves as part of, uh, Africa, past and present. That program for us, it's one way to start having this type of discussion here on the western in the West. And that mission extends to Cameroon, where I want to say on my biography was saying that it seems as if the FACO was already built. It's not built. That's why I have this image. This image is actually the the war that is encircling the land we bought to build FACO. So we're still developing the project. This is exactly the stage it was at last week. We just built this war. The idea is to represent in this world a lot of African resistance. The goal of FACO is really to have to raise children, because FACO start at kindergarten level. So raise children who feel very proud of their roots, who understand the local environment, and who are equipped to stay and build that environment. Because in my opinion, I felt like I was educated to leave my environment. Like things that I was learning were not things that could help build the local area where I grew up in Konsamba and then in Yaoundé. And finding myself in France and in the US was not a mistake. It was just the result of the type of training that I've had throughout my life. So there's that part as well that should be taken care of. And that's what we do at FACO. I'm also a Fulbright specialist. I've not been my first. I'll be in Cameroon in November, but I'm going to University of Bertois for two reasons. For one main reason is that the department, the chair of the physics department there, understand kind of the type of work we're trying to do. So we will work together to try to develop an undergraduate physics lab, and support capacity building. But again, I'm not going there to teach them anything or to show them anything. We're going to work together to try to co-create something that is useful and accessible. But we want that lab to be as much as possible grounded in local goals. Um, to finish, I want to say that from community college in Sacramento to schoolyard in Cameroon, the hope is to have an education that should serve the people. We have to challenge global academic hierarchy. We have to build bridge between community and create inclusive system that will value every culture's way of knowing. our future depend on reclaiming education as a tool for liberation. So thank you. I'll stop there, and then I will hope to answer a question if there's a question about this later.
Thank you so much. This is fascinating. Maybe during the questions, maybe we can go back to this point: how to reconcile African cosmogony and modern astronomy. And this is for me something very fascinating. And another illuminating intervention, really bridging African cosmogony and modern astronomy is for me something kind of counterintuitive for someone from social sciences, because we always think about these things in a separate manner. And I think what I took from this part of your presentation is that knowledge systems are not just epistemological framework. They are really, really a cosmological map of being, but also rooted in history and territory and community. And the last example you use, talking about your own experience, but also trajectory, is really a good example to show that, well, your education can sometimes determine your intellectual mobility, which also shape your way of thinking the world, as was the case with your story, your interaction with the Senegalese fisherman, right? Really enjoyed this presentation, and thank you really for expanding our sense of what counts as science, and for inviting us to look beyond our way of understanding the world, sometimes which is shaped by education, formal education, but also this curiosity and to become more critical of the kind of knowledge we get. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. Zale, are you ready? Is Zale here?
Yes, I don't know. Maybe Dr. Zale? He's muted.
Zale, can you hear me? Well,
I'm gonna try his cell.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, here I am. Okay. Assalamu alaikum.
okay. Hey, Zale, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, thank you
Alaikum.
so much for having me. I was just like, having hard times, getting back. Yeah, I'm going to, I'm not sharing the slide. Just, discussing about my paper. And I'm just going to start by this statement by St. Augustine. I quote, "The world is a book. Those who do not travel read only a page." Why this is interesting is the fact that we tend to see things, from sometimes, from a specific perspective, or just, a one-way solution. And the world, is diverse. The world is not only one place, and we should be starting, from there, to decolonize, or even reshape the way we think. And I'm going to, to go deeper from indigenous perspective. I have learned, that ash could be used as organic fertilizer by local farmers. And it is a very informative thing about indigenous knowledge, which would prevent the community from diseases like cancer. And not only that, this is somehow something I have learned from Professor Usman Sen, who is the WARC director. And I think that everyone who is here knows him. And he actually demonstrated that Senghor poetically described what he calls an agrarian metaphor in his poem Black Woman, when he declared that in his collection Royaume d'Enfance, which could be translated into Kingdom of Childhood. And I can cite Senghor when he said, I quote, "Naked woman, black woman, I sing your passing beauty and fix it for all eternity, before jealous fate reduces you to ashes to nourish the roots of life." End of quotation. So here we learn in terms of sustainability from the Serer community. They don't use like, chemicals, to fertilize their crops. They don't need that. So they just using ashes from the previous crops they had over there, and they would live there, for a certain time, and they would come back and just like burn it down. So the ash would serve as fertilizers. And this is very telling. And however, we still have like, here in our communities or in our states here in Africa, being influenced by, the capitalist system, where they have sometimes, to take those fertilizers, those chemicals, and that would, in the long run, produce some cancer or, things that would have a social or critical effect on public health. We can learn also in terms of sustainability as well from the Lebu community, who are traditional inhabitants of Dakar, Senegal, through the ways in which they protect the environment and think for future generation. For instance, turtles, the eggs, they are highly needed for special meals, within the community. However, once someone finds some of them along the shore, they could grab a couple of eggs while leaving a stick standing, on that place. That would serve as an indicator to a second person who would find a spot to grab a couple of eggs also and leave a stick as well. So that a third person who would not touch the eggs and go look for another untouched spot. So you see, how the communities, they have a very smart and very strategic way of preserving the environment. And they're not like, waiting for engineers or university professors to come back and tell them, what to do. And they have been, protecting the environment, the community for centuries and centuries. And this kind of like, made me think of how sometimes, what we call development, or, sometimes when we talk about progress, always tied to capitalism, have been dictating human relationships. And there are still some communities, who stick to their studies. One example could be learned from Professor Falungom, author of Muslim Beyond the Arab World, The Odyssey of Ajami and the Muridiya. That's a book published by Oxford University Press in 2016. And he explained actually that, even before colonization, Africans, they had their own way of, especially here in Senegal, in the Senegambia area, their own ways of, communicating, using the Ajami scripts. Actually, when you look at it, especially the Arabs, imagine this. The Arabs can say, oh, this is bad Arabic. And for the French, they would not understand what it is, and they would think that it's Arabic, although it's not Arabic. So they were able to, to create something and turn it into, an African outlet or an African system of knowledge production. So that's what I wanted to share, regarding that. And also based on Falungom's experience, we can reconfirm that money cannot buy everything in general, and especially in Senegal. He even explains that during his fieldwork on Ajami scripts, that Senegal what we call tarbiya. Tarbiya is it's an Arabic word, but very used in Islamic studies, which means humbling oneself to acquire knowledge. And that tarbiya is highly praised within those Muslim communities, wherein the elders are very delighted sharing their knowledge and even letting you access their personal libraries. Sometimes, you are a scholar, you need, to know how to navigate, with the people, the local communities when you conduct research. You cannot come and, pretend that, you are better off, or you are richer than them. So that way you won't have any information, or at least, not serious information. So this way of life reminds us about what also we can call paideia, which is a Greek word that could translate as learning to die to be a better person. Scholar and activist Colin West is always eager to recall the concepts in regard to capitalism, the capitalist influence. Also important to mention is the ways in which Usman Umar Khan recalls the contribution of non-Europhone intellectuals in post-colonial Africa. Even in traditional Africa, the elders would share knowledge to the mostly humble and altruistic son, so they could use it to serve the community. And just to recall that humbling oneself is very, very important in Africa. And I think that's a call for any scholar, who would conduct research, here on the continent, to learn about that and be prepared, about a sort of cultural etiquette, how to conduct yourself, how to navigate, with the community. It's very important. Even in traditional Africa, the elders would share their knowledge to the mostly humble and altruistic son, so they could use it to serve the community. It made me think of Amadou Hampâté Bâ's words. In Africa, when an elder dies, it is a library burning down. In a similar vein, scholar Felwine Sarr, in his seminal book Afrotopia, recalls the urgency of a decolonial perspective, fetching even from Valentin Yves Mudimbe's stance. Basically, that's what. And this is also one example. This is a book by two U.S. scholars. One is Molly Kruger-Ernst, and the other is Devon Bryson. A book published recently by Oxford University Press, where they explain, their own experience conducting research here in Senegal. Although it's about, it's about African cinema and, civic engagement, but it has a lot about, how those scholars, conducting research on the continent, should be behaving. And this is also a beautiful book by Tao-Li Goff. She's Vietnamese by origin, but she's in the States. She's based in the States. It's a recently published book, also very interesting, and explaining from a decolonial perspective how we should be also navigating ourselves as scholars. And the title of the book is Dark Laboratory, but very, very interesting. Yeah. So I'm sure you're familiar also with Ta-Nehisi Coates, his last book, The Message. And there is one part, he even talks about Senegal, just, visiting Senegal for the first time and being very amazed. And sometimes I started with that when I was talking about St. Augustine's statement that the world is a book, those who do not travel read on the page. And I think it is our duty as scholars, as intellectuals, to share those kind of things with our students and within our community. So that way, it could be very influential and very telling in the long run. So thank you so much. I'm not going to keep you, so long. And we can open room for discussions. And then thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Zale. Thank you for this reminder that alternative knowledge system already exists and rooted in local practices and worldview. And your example of the Serer using ash instead of chemical fertilizer challenges dominant agricultural models and raises a real concern about the health impact of industrial farming. And I also like the example of the Lebu community that you have mentioned, which has long practiced environmental preservation and sustainability well before it became a development buzzword. So thank you so much. And I think what I took from this presentation, as well as for the previous one, is that you know, we need to rethink development well beyond start with recognizing or reclaiming the value of what has long been made invisible. So thank you so much. I think we're gonna open the door to questions and maybe contributions. And yeah, so the floor is to whoever wants to jump in. Okay, you can raise your hand if you want, virtually, of course.
Yeah, Nana is raising his hand.
Okay, Nana, you can go ahead.
Thank you, Mamadou. My question is for, I'll start with maybe for Amber, and just going back to that work extracting resources that, you know, and the role of the social scientists there. And the example of social scientists that were taken were mostly, I may be wrong, but I remember what was that, the sacrifice, the Madame Sacrifice, were European. Are they local? And then you talk also about social sciences and the fact that university, you know, the hierarchy will affect them. Are there local scientists, local social scientists who are trying to challenge the status quo? Because I think that is one point, is what do we do about all these practices?
Thanks, Nana. Well, okay, so first, I think, yes, you're right. I focused heavily on Dr. Ellen Brown. Oh, I think Nana may have dropped out in this presentation. And I think that she is an example that demonstrates a larger tradition, and that she, in some ways, so she is an American anthropologist trained at Cornell. She did 2 different stints in the Peace Corps in southern Chad, spoke 7 Chadian languages. And so I think she stands out in the memories of people who encountered her, but that actually her anthropologist counterpart in Cameroon was a prominent Cameroonian anthropologist. And he, you know, his work was not visibilized in the same way, I think, partially because, you know, he was a Black Cameroonian, and it wasn't kind of as exotic for international media and for ExxonMobil to celebrate that involvement. But that actually, when you look at the spread, at least, of labor in the Chad-Cameroon oil pipeline, it was more Chadian and Cameroonian researchers on the ground than international researchers. But that there is a racial hierarchy, certainly, in and between those social scientists, with international social scientists at the time, you know, having more authority. Oh, sorry, Nana, I'm not sure if you, okay. and serving as more a kind of principal investigator role. So that is obviously a very relevant dynamic to understand and to describe and to critique. So the second part of your question is about, are there Cameroonian scholars and social scientists who challenge extractive projects? Yes, of course. And you will know, being a Cameroonian scholar, that the train can be incredibly dangerous for defiant scholars working in Cameroon. And so I think the point from Dr. Mamadou about perhaps refusal and rejection as being an important practice for social scientists whose agency is constrained by an authoritarian state with neo-imperial support and complicity. There are, of course, more prominent cases of social scientists, I think, speaking out about climate change in Cameroon and deforestation, but that in my interviews and in my conversations, another kind of aspect, a part of the transnational differences of the roles of social scientists as they are structurally positioned, is that oftentimes for my colleagues, at least in Yaoundé, there was like a sense of pride of being invited by transnational corporations to provide forms of expertise. And social scientists have legitimate grounds to justify their involvement, I think partially and in some ways. And so some of the ways that people defend their work with mining firms is to say that in their absence, things could have been worse for the community, and that they negotiate their partial and impartial agency in ways that nonetheless negotiate on behalf of local communities. So it's very challenging. And as you'll know, I think it's much, much more common to find Cameroonians working in the diaspora who are speaking out and who can be much more forceful in their critique. I also actually, if you don't mind, I also had a question for you, because you, I think, wanted to suggest that the role of corruption in knowledge creation is also something that social scientists should take seriously. And I agree with that, but I would be very curious to hear you kind of unpack that a little bit for us, if you wanted to.
Thank you, Amber. Thanks for the answer. Sorry, I missed like the very beginning because I had somebody coming into my house and I'm alone at home, so I had to open the door. But thanks. But you're right. It's very challenging to go against the status quo if you are based in Cameroon. If your resources depend on the government, that which can be controlled by the colonial power, or even just the leaders. So when I was speaking about corruption, it was not mainly in the training, it's how we use what we know. It's if we, you were talking about this paper and the fact that you have to read the footnotes to know that people are working. So that is it may not be dubbed corruption, but in my mind, that is a form of corruption. If I'm working in the interest of, if for the interest of a corporation, I should be able to state it at the beginning of my work, not in a footnote somewhere, not in an acknowledgement, typically written in much smaller policy somewhere in the back of the paper. So for me, that is already corruption. Now, if you go into the country and you were talking about that hierarchy that hierarchy is also a form of corruption, because if you don't listen to if your dean give you an assignment and you don't listen to and you don't do what he's asking you to do, or you disagree, you may not be promoted. So that's a quid pro quo there. So for me, there is a lot of corruption in the way we're pursuing this. That kind of what led me uh, to think at some point that the intervention that we can do, one of the best, it's not the only one, could be with children, because you need to build their identity, you need to build their resolve against, and you need to prepare them against, because sometimes we do it without, corruption is not always willingly. People can be corrupted without even knowing that they've been corrupted. And since the goal of our education is not centering the need of our community, then we do the bid for the order because I'm earning a little more, because yeah, I feel proud that ExxonMobil is calling me to work with them. So I don't think about, so the corruption was not, I was not saying that people there's maybe money exchange all the time. I'm just saying that the system is built in a way that corruption is accepted. I hope I kind of answered the question.
I have a follow-up question. This is a kind of a question that also can be answered by all of you. It's, across the examples that you guys have, shared, and from extractive industries to education alternative and Ajami literacy, and the question I want to ask is how to move beyond, for example, recognizing local knowledge system toward, fundamentally reshaping our institutions and even research agenda and development models around them. So in other words, what would it take to shift from a symbolic inclusion to an epistemic transformation?
Thank you for this very interesting question. But I think politics has an important role in that, because you are a scholar, at Cheikh Anta Diop University, being at IFA, you know what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Yeah, usually, change would come. As we always say, from the bottom, okay, and go up. But sometimes also people who are up, sometimes they blocking things. And I think in the case of Senegal, for example, we have a newly elect. They're here for like a year. Calling themselves Pan-Africanists, but yeah, things are still very slow. Yeah, how can you understand at Cheikh Anta Diop University that we still not we still not teaching Cheikh Anta Diop at Cheikh Anta Diop? It doesn't make sense. And with all the fight, the community, the scholars, the Senegalese community, the Senegalese nation, they fought, to get rid of the former regime. But we still don't have those classes at Cheikh Anta Diop University. So this is very, and sometimes I'm just saying, oh yeah, what is blocking us? So yeah, sometimes it's not easy, and I think that we do scholars talking, is something very, very, very highly praised, but also the political pushback is the most important thing, and I think. That's where the scholars, should be, weighing their influence and see that hopefully that things going to change, and maybe using the media to raise awareness. Yeah, that's my take. Thank you.
Thank you, Zale. Thanks.
Yeah, I think this is the question. This is the perennial question. And For me, I have, so for the last decade or so, my role, I think, in the collective project to set the, to kind of establish a foundation or another layer of bricks on the foundation that's already been established of a transformative educational pedagogy has been to critique and to identify and to document and to archive the ways in which hegemonic and powerful institutions or individuals have routinely appropriated the terms of struggle, appropriated the language, including appropriated and instrumentalized and weaponized indigenous forms of knowledge. I mean, the World Bank, who funded the Chad Cameroon oil pipeline as far back as the 1980s, had established an indigenous knowledges for development paradigm where they hired social scientists to go into communities and to document practices of witchcraft and sorcery and medicinal practices. So hegemonic actors have long understood the value and the significance of indigenous forms of knowledge. And so not to romanticize inclusion, but I think actually to have an initial skepticism of these forms of appropriation, these forms of assimilation, and forms of mystification, right? Especially in our teaching, that as educators, our role is to demonstrate for our students that we have to think deeper and more critically about, these flagship Pan-African programs, for example, that don't offer economic liberation and cultural forms of sovereignty for people. And so that's the first part. And then I think also a second part of a genuine commitment to a transformative, empowering, liberatory educational system is accepting the slowness of that process and accepting the fatigue and the forms of defeat. I mean, right now, certainly in the United States, the forms of popular animosity towards university professors and written knowledge, that it takes patience, and that accepting sometimes ambiguities in the process of seeking transformation so that we can encourage each other and support each other, even as, we are in this shared moment of kind of global authoritarianism. So to accept that we have no satisfying answer to that question.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm gonna kind of just emphasize one thing that Amber talked about at the end is to be able to accept the fatigue, the defeat, the slowness of the process. I think it's important also to remember that that process did not happen overnight. It took hundreds of years to build a system that we're trying to fight, and you cannot expect to win overnight. So I think we must, I mean, in my opinion, I think about we must be okay planting the seed, knowing that we may not see the fruit that will bear. But so people need to start the work, knowing that it's not a work that will, again, like we were saying, doing one program and talking to 45 students in 2 years is not enough. Thinking about having a school or even questioning some of the critiquing what's happening by one or two or even 10 people is not enough. So it's just to have a systemic change. I think we need to be patient. We need to do the work and not expect having overnight results.
Thank you so much. Any other question? No? Well, if there is any other question, I think we can just, thank you once again for these enlightening presentations. And I think we learned a lot, but also they helped shape our understanding of very complex challenges that academics face, but also today, the challenge of, rethinking the way we know, and especially in Africa. And I really, really like your different takes. I don't know, Ali, if you have any other questions or if you want to share some info, I'll give you the floor. And again, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Bodian. No, I don't have any question, but I just would like to take the opportunity and, on behalf of the Fulbright program and the office in Sub-Saharan Africa, I really want to sincerely thank each presenter and you as well, Dr. Bodian, to our moderator for today, for sharing your time, all of you, your expertise and your insight with us. I think you all make great contributions, which added great value to the seminar and really help enhance our understanding in meaningful ways, especially for me, who's not a researcher. So really, I truly appreciate your engagement and the inspiration you've provided as we continue our Fulbright journey this month, because we have 2 more presentations for our period this year. Your knowledge, generosity, and really most importantly, the passion you've shown for your expertise truly enrich this 10th seminar. So I think we've learned so much from your stories and your perspectives, and I leave more inspired, informed, and connected because of you. So a lot of current Fulbrighters have terminated their grants for the year, and or they are on the verge of wrapping up the year, which explains the low attendance. We apologize for that, but still the recording will be available soon, and I'm sure that our future Fulbright groups will enjoy watching the video on our platforms. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much for having us.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Dr. Zed, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, Brendan. Brendan, I haven't heard from him. Oh, he's okay.
Hello.
Hey, how you doing, Brendan? Thank you for coming, man. You always come to the seminars.
Yeah. Sorry, I wasn't able to join the session yesterday. I was busy.
Oh, that's okay, man.
Hopefully it went well and there's some good attendance and good talks.
It did. Did you enjoy this seminar?
Yes, I did. It's it's a little different from my field, even though I'm doing like social science surveys for my project, and my kind of background is biology. But it's always interesting in these seminars because they're usually very different from my field, so it just opens up my perspective to see what other people are doing and what they're studying.
Right.
But there was a lot of good points too that I can resonate to with Togo, and even questions now that I want to ask some of my friends, just even about some of the things that were talked about in Cameroon, and see if there's similar things happening in Togo as well, or nearby countries.
So when do you finish your grant? Do you have a long way to go?
No, I just have so I'm under 2 months, so I'll be done August 30th.
Okay, well, that sounds good. Well, we're around if ever you need help with anything, or you have any questions, or you think we can help with anything, just feel free. Okay?
Okay, yeah, I appreciate it. Have most people ended their
I think
grants?
so, yeah. A lot of people ended their grant already.
Okay.
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I kind of figured.
uh,
But
yeah. Sounds good, man. I guess we'll see you around.
okay, sounds good. Thank you so much for
All right.
organizing this.
Thank
This was
you.
wonderful.
Take
Dr.
care.
Bodian,
Oui, Aline.
mais affaire bi neexoon na de.
C'était bien, c'était vraiment bien. Le débat était de haute facture. Puis on a des gens qui sont vraiment des experts dans le domaine, quoi.
Ouais.
Oui,
C'est dommage que
vrai
gars yi
vraiment.
bon. Ah waaw ñëwal.
Oui. Bon, mais bon, je pense que puisque c'est enregistré, bon,
Ouais.
on va les encourager peut-être à suivre, quoi, l'élément.
Ouais. Ba pare gars yi comment je vais dire pour l'application vraiment baax na trop comme ni ma ko doon wax gars yi notification yi rek leen fàtte woon quoi. Notification yi mais I think they working on it normalement wax nañ semaine prochaine dina pare. Je pense que vraiment quand notification yi buñ ko ci installé daal je pense que avec les corps qui vont venir ça va être beaucoup plus intéressant quoi.
Beaucoup plus fluide, quoi.
Voilà, quand ils vont pouvoir vraiment, à chaque fois qu'on va faire des choses, qu'ils reçoivent ça sur leur téléphone.
Oui,
J'espère que dinañ gën a mën a ñu kii quoi, interactif.
tout à fait.
Voilà, léegi semaine prochaine, kële ki war a présenter Georgina, le
Waaw.
18 la waxoon, le 18, vendredi 18.
OK.
Dina baax ah 15h.
Ah, c'est bon. Moi, bon, université, je suis en congé, donc je suis à la maison, je ne fais rien, quoi. Donc, date bonne dia après moi, ça me convient.
Voilà, le 25 aussi, moi, dernier bi, avec Heinz, le
Waaw.
vendredi qui suit, quoi, le 25.
C'est
Voilà.
parfait, c'est bon.
Donc, j'attends de
Et on va
recevoir.
trouver des guest speakers peut-être, quoi, le plus rapidement possible. Je vais essayer
Voilà,
de voir
donc,
un peu.
ok. J'attends de recevoir le bio et tout ça. Comme ça, me terminer les références, et voilà, nous qui me partager, quoi.
OK. Mais si tu as aussi des noms en tête, je ne sais pas, moi, enfin, si quand tu en connais, on peut toujours, et je peux en parler aussi au vieux pour voir s'il peut proposer des noms.
Waaw.
Ça
Waaw,
peut
man
faciliter.
moom wax dëgg affaire recherche yi moom c'est pas xare ñu ma ci nag wax dëgg yàlla mais yeah, if ever something comes up dinaa la def suggestion quoi.
D'accord, amul problème.
Voilà léegi xoolal pour rapport annuel bi je pense que la dernière fois yaa ngi ma yónni woon email mais c'est octobre lañ ko war a joxe ah c'est pas maintenant.
C'est pas juillet.
Non, octobre la bi ma xoolee scope of work bi octobre lañ fa bind quoi.
OK. Moi, j'avais pensé que c'était au mois de juillet. J'ai déjà commencé. Bon, c'est pas grave. Ça permet
non
un peu
non
d'aller vite.
non xoolal mais xam nga dama la waxoon ñu essayer benn formule bu bees c'est-à-dire que au lieu ngay ñëw di reprendre lépp c'est-à-dire que gis nga comment on fait avec les rapports trimestriels xam nga dina jël rapport mensuel yi ñu boole ko après ñu def ay observation pour les rapports trimestriels léegi loolu laa bëggoon aussi ñu adapté ko au rapport annuel c'est-à-dire que qu'on agence les rapports trimestriels léegi après à la fin de chaque période ñu def observation léegi nga xam ne fin bi ci suuf ñu def benn observation générale rek loolu laa la waxoon dernière fois quoi nga newoon ma waaw donc je ne sais pas ndax tu veux toujours rester sur ça ou pas quoi.
Maintenant,
Hein?
bon, peut-être, on peut adopter cette formule et faire une synthèse à la fin et proposer des recommandations.
Voilà, donc boobu man loolu je peux m'en charger moom laa la doon wax quoi donc je peux I can put it together après man dinaa def samay observation léegi yow bu ma la yónnee yow mun nga xool mise en forme ba yooyu peut-être table des matières soo amee aussi observation yooyu ma yokk ko après ñu envoyé ko quoi.
D'accord, amul
Voilà,
problème.
mais c'est pas maintenant je pense c'est en octobre quoi Inch'Allah.
OK, c'est bon.
Ok kon baax na.
OK, nekkal si jàmm.
Ok nekk si jàmm salaamaaleykum. Comment je fais?